further resolve details. We agreed that we would have our chief of staff, the appropriate cabinet members and others meet with one another to discuss the details and every issue that we want this. Son Kim, Associated Press.
As the president on a three-leg trip, as you know, to Egypt, Cambodia, and now Indonesia, in Bali, 20 talking about his first in-person meeting with President Xi. Obviously, the headline's going to be, he was clear and I was clear. I'm not looking for conflict, Jim. I want to manage this competition responsibly.
Well, okay. You're not looking for conflict, but there are two ways to approach trying to rein in China. One was Trump's way of putting tariffs, which did affect Americans. And the other is to go after the military and make the military second rate by not using the Pacific government. And I don't understand how you can have anything other than a pretty forceful competition if you can see person or that's you can't really make what I think words really now.
3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. Next now, we'll include a new GN experiment, our most powerful fat incinerator ever. With key ingredients to help you get back in shape fast. Absolutely free. That's S-T-O-R-S. 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. Disney plans an institute a targeted hiring freeze as well as some job cuts. That's according to this internal memo about Chapek sent to company executives late Friday. The entity said Disney will look at every avenue of operations and labor to find savings, adding, quote, I'm fully aware this will be a difficult process for many of you in your teams. You're going to have to make tough and uncomfortable decisions, but that is just what leadership requires. And I thank you in advance for stepping up during this important time. Our discussion Friday too about why this wasn't part of the discussion on the earnings call earlier.
I think so. I've been coming earnings.
Significant retailers.
Exactly. In fact, a piece that I found quite surprising said Target, which reports the 16th, and Walmart, which reports tomorrow, are going to have traffic slowing, and they expect fourth quarter promotions. Now, I think Brian Cornell at Target would say, what do you think I took the charge? I got rid of everything, and I've got the right inventory. Now, this also has a lot to do with groceries.
Right. To remind people, very large inventory charge. Remember last quarter at Target took a big write down. So your point being, they've gotten all that stuff out of the way. They're not going to take hits again this quarter.
Right. They say grocery comps could negatively raise the prices, could negatively impact the mix. Now, I think that both these companies are doing quite well. This is all a problem I have, David, with this so-called recession. I mean, it's Target's doing what kind of recession? It's like if when the market price targets raised cheap, what kind of recession? It's critical. And then the answer is, well, take a look at West. All the companies that never came public, all the companies that are sitting there, all the companies that came public that are, like thick. I just mentioned, I don't even think of them. No, I do think of them. Fix, 9 to 6 Barclays, that economy verse. A lot of companies that flipped their pots did, and it really was public. These are not just as forced as almost as this, at least I did by Fix.
I haven't looked at the figs, but
where you want to know?
Just in a longer guy.
Yeah, that's too early.
Sleep. Income stress. Yeah. Saying the top 20% they have 70% of leftover excess savings.
Well, we know that we did. Sharon Emerson did a piece last week on the file. Where's the company still in this case? Which did percent. And we got the problem. We have capitalists
certain amount in their bank account, which is just, very minimal.
So, David, when you talk to people who are laid off by Facebook,
I haven't talked to any people who've been laid off by Meta. Are you?
okay, yeah,
Okay.
the preponderance seems to look like preponderance. This is my, I'm sorry, to anecdote. They want to find jobs. They have good money, but they're not going to volley. It's not a lot of volley jumping. Right. It's more like finding another job at a similar company that frankly is not hiring, which is why I keep talking about, if you took Elon Musk, Twitter is not hiring.
No, Twitter's definitely not in hiring mode right now. They need to be at some point, given how many people have left. It's a private company, as we know, with a good amount of debt, $13 billion, and we've certainly been following it in terms of what he's doing or not doing, or decisions that are being made right now.
Do you think entertainment is part of the Great Recession? I should quote great. Recession. Saying if there's a recession, 10%. Like what
People will cut back on their expenditures.
all the checks percent.
Oh,
Recession.
yeah, well, it's not a great time to be 5 times less. That's not a great time to get 5 times.
$6 billion in bonds. They had 9 point this quarter goes. They jumped it. I'm not thinking of 10 billion either.
One of those discovered, right, 50 billion in debt. They're still pointing to 12 billion to be done next year potentially. Well, that's a lot. If they do that number, then the market, I think, would probably react positively.
John, also an important doctor, John.
Yes, he is. Yes,
My God, I'm sure it's not.
yes, he is. It's going to be Liberty Media Days later this week too. So you're going to have an opportunity to talk about Tom Malone, my annual sit down with Tom Malone.
I'm not saying a thing about Warner Brothers to you.
How about Meta though? And how about in general that complex of the, well, it's not a mega cap anymore, but Amazon's moved last week. Meta was up 25% last
Well, because he bit the bullet
week.
Mark Zuckerberg.
We have Amazon down about 2.5%. Amazon down about 28%. No, but my point is, we had an incredible rally last week in these things.
Well, I mean, Mark Zuckerberg is saying this, we're really trying to get revenues in line here, get the expense structure in mind. That's a big deal.
I mean, you can't really see it from that starting, but when you're in look at a month, it might come up a little better. That move at Amazon last week was pretty
But
expensive
there
as
is
well.
a good way to slip. 100,000. 100,000. Is it like the Army after World War II when they were letting go of like the 600?
800,000 people in 2 years.
Yeah, 600.
Certainly listening to Bezos on CNN earlier this morning, talking about either a recession or one to come, and just giving small businesses and households advice of taking risk off the table.
Well, the small businesses, well, the billionaires are hard to disagree with, but small businesses actually, according to Paychecks, which is the largest small business check issuer, small businesses doing fabulously. It's actually no let-up whatsoever. So while I appreciate what you're saying, it's not where the recession is headed.
This is the special for small business. Exactly right. Here's what Bezos said on CNN earlier today.
And large screen TV, maybe slow that down, keep that cash, see what happens. Same thing with a refrigerator or a new car or whatever. Just take some risk off the table. If you're a small business, maybe delay some capital purchases. You really need that new piece of equipment. Maybe it can wait a little bit. Have some cash on hand. Just a little bit of risk reduction to make the difference for that small business. If we do get into even more serious economic problems, so get a play the probability a little bit.
Okay, it's interesting that actually a lot of rich people come on and say, well, it's the end of the world, right? The end of the world is that's just wise advice. Pull your horns in a little to read the player head. And I know that at my restaurant. I said, well, this is take this with kids.
This London, better watch out. It's not a franchise.
Don't you think that makes sense? What in fact is just getting annihilated.
Well, that's why I mentioned Bang, but it was up a lot last week, or certainly
It was big fang week.
It was a very big thing. Now, by the way, to reverse as well, Pharma on Friday, I remember. Like, what's going on today? Well, it was across the board. Maybe it was a reflection of the fact that the Democrats were more likely to keep the Senate, which obviously has occurred, but maybe it was simply rotation, Jim. But now we've got Merck, J&J, so all of them, all of them up.
It's important. What was that 16 people all over?
You saw those people trying to tie that between the big village meets over the weekend. I said the price action in the stock, although Washington Post today said that whole Twitter verification fiasco did cause a panic within the company.
I think that Twitter advertising, I was hoping that they would select a CEO who would be client facing and that he would be internal possibly. That was rejected.
Right. No, we saw you saw him say no to your suggestion of John Ledger.
These are companies who don't.
But at least you get a response. You got an answer, yeah.
He's a legitimate guy. I like to think that as a
John Ledger is totally legitimate.
John Ledger would be fabulous. I went to John to say, address this.
John, who watches the show, I don't want John to, become a contributor here. He's not going to take no.
I love that so much. He's just a smart guy. A lot of people told me that they thought he would have been an absolutely terrific choice. But what?
This is funny. It's a picture of the show. But yeah.
I just think it's, look, I think that keep me remarkable. Okay. I just think you're remarkable. Now we got that was extended now. It was like when I went to Goldman and they said, we're not offering a job. And I said, that's a clear maybe.
See, maybe, but only Disney would give you that kind of clarity on your part. It's not going to stop them from making continued suggestions about it to every corporation about what they should do.
But I will tell you, one of the things that he really screwed up on was he didn't even emphasize the partnership. Here is all that shape.
Here we go. Say that.
Well, an important company.
Yes, there are many important companies.
Okay, so
and by the way, there's also
TJS is
this whole crypto world. I don't feel like we've fully explored that. In terms of what the impact is going to be, or at least the concerns right now about the bankruptcy. Yes, Sam Bankman-Fried. We assume he's throwing the bombs. We got to send somebody down there to go see. But there were people who were there was shit. Very legit. And really at this point, we're still just dealing with kind of reporting from any number of different news sources in terms of what customer accounts and how much went from customer accounts to Alameda. And B, what we heard from him in his tweets and of course from the bankruptcy filing. But so many questions. Very few answers. By the way, you haven't even mentioned this hack over the weekend, where perhaps another as much as $500 million worth of customer accounts.
That money in there.
Maybe a good sign.
I want you to tell me about how's Dogecoin, Polygon, how's Bitcoin doing? Chainlink. For the month. This should take that. That's even lucky, I think.
Yeah, all those different things are finance.
Well, let's just do it. More about it, like
into
oh no, it only has.
And again, as I said earlier, people pointing me to this attestation put out by and reviewed by BDO in terms of what are the assets that back up the Tether stable coin.
It's not really been revealed. The whole thing's up to you revealed.
But it goes to the lack of transparency overall in this entire ecosystem, a lack of regulation that we're already well aware of.
You have no right to criticize DeFi. How can you do that? Do you know anything? DeFi, that's how they are. I always thought that. Right here, you ain't saying like, look, I'm the worst. Yeah, my kids find it. They're saying it's DeFi, you idiot. They never say it's DeFi. It's DeFi, you idiot. Like how you said about me with this.
Well, I didn't say you were an idiot.
Oh, well, it was implied.
Really?
When the people don't read about it, it's like you're a complete moron that you even question FTX.
By the way, it was true. It's been very difficult in some ways to see how some generational in terms of the inability to fully understand things. But there are things I do understand. I understand leverage. I understand confidence. And I understand when you have a lot of leverage and not a lot of confidence, bad things happen. And so that's kind of where we are.
You're correctly questioning the JP Morgan now. How does Tim interview Sam Bankman?
I don't know.
we have people, I shouldn't say, I don't know if Larry did it. Someone said they heard Larry. I shouldn't say that. I like Larry very much. But Sam Bankman, this guy, just so you know, was top of his class. So there were many people who thought he was the smartest person they've ever met. By the way, Ellison, we barely talk about her, who is number two? We don't know who's in one, so to speak. We don't know who's in.
We don't even know. Well, in on what? We don't, I mean,
In on what the looting of that TX. In on what? In on what?
well, when you have a liability between 10 and 50 billion, it kind of gives you a sense as to how little we do. Okay. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's good. How about this Robin?
Could be over 100,000 predators. Foreign entities all over the place. This is going to be.
That's why I'm telling you, Jay Powell, this is really snowball. Yeah, I wanted to snowball. I'm just saying that, remember, I'm trying to find the epicenter if says whether it's going to be, is it crypto? Have you ever seen the number of companies that are involved in this?
Yeah, I was because, for example, on Friday, Citi said that crypto is too small and too silent.
That's what,
It's contagion, but you're arguing it's large enough to make a dent in the Fed's mission.
yeah, I just think the whole idea of this is the Enron versus Lehman, comparisons is my mother said earlier. And it's entirely possible that it could be its own animal, given the fact that the coins that I mentioned, those very key coins, worth $8 billion. And they're pretty much, I think, punchlines. If Penny Youngman were still alive, I think they all
Their jokes, their whole origin is based on the joke.
yes, right. And I think that we wanted, Mr. MSTR, he often comes on MicroStrategy. He's a very good spokesman. Michael
He's
said.
a very good spokesman for Bitcoin.
Yeah, David Blaine's a good spokesman for that. Who is David Blaine?
Oh, yes, very good. He showed you tons of
Oz's now. Dr. Oz. See back in there doing cardiology. What you got there?
I'm still trying to figure out what the serum tokens are.
Well, David, I gave you some fabulous tokens because he leads Norway.
2 billion more.
We have to get call. But I really think you should focus on the ones that I talked about. Because they are the blue chips of the I wasn't sure.
No, it's not funny.
It's not funny. People have these.
The president did make some additional headlines in the Q&A, speaking in Bali in the place that he's giving his presidency. Kayla Tausey has all those headlines. Morning, Kayla.
Good morning, Carl. At the top of this show, you heard the president say that he does not expect a Cold War in the Indo-Pacific. He does not see any imminent action by China to take Taiwan. And he said that the outcome of the U.S. midterms was essentially proof positive that the U.S. agenda on the world stage is strong and is ready to get back down to business. Now, in the aftermath of what we showed on this air, there were more questions about exactly what's going on in Ukraine and whether the retaking of Kherson by Ukraine is a turning point in the war. President Biden didn't call it just that, but he said it is a significant event and that Ukraine will be the top priority at the G20, where they will figure out whether there is any room to compromise or any interest in compromising on behalf of Ukraine to get some sort of negotiated outcome. He was also asked about how he found President Xi on a personal level, whether he found it more confrontational or more conciliatory. President Biden said neither. He felt that President Xi was straightforward, but that there were also some areas in which the two countries could compromise, and they set up specific work streams for counterparts in both countries to be having those discussions moving forward. That's a significant development because Beijing had previously restricted certain communication channels after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan in August. To that end, the Secretary of State Antony Blinken will be visiting China at some future date. That was one outcome of this meeting. But the PRC outlook from the meeting was decided because Rosie pointed to Steve. And she was she two leaders will be seeing each other much more in Bali after this very formative conversation.
Tausey on the president's trip. G20 overall. Let's get Bob starting with the Dow down 28. Hey, Bob.
Well, it's a flat open, but it's been a very interesting weekend. A lot of discussion about what's going on and
light of these recent rally we've seen in the market and what it means for the earnings situation. Just take a look at the sectors again. I look every day at risk on, risk off. Let's just call this sort of an even day. Big names. China's doing well. We had some more stimulus in the real estate sector for China, so some of the Chinese stocks are doing better. Our innovation slightly underperforming the overall market. Semis okay. AMD was up on some positive comments from some of the analysts. Semiconductors, I'd say that's fair right now. Flattish, slightly down. Metals and mining, another group that's flat. So let's just pull this a bit of a mixed open here with ARC Innovation, the weak mover. Look at S&P movers here, sort of a mixed crowd. AMD's positive, and UBS, Baird had some positive analyst comments. Some of the pharmaceutical stocks open flat to slightly on the upside. Lilly is now negative, but it's positive. And Amazon and Tesla are definitely weighing on the overall S&P. They're one of the two weakest stocks there. So the recent rally's been predicated on three positive events that we saw last week. Number one, of course, progress on the Fed and inflation. Number two, COVID lockdowns in China easing up a little bit. And finally, some hope for progress in the war, Russia and Ukraine, capturing the strategic city of Kherson there. So the recent rally, we had the progress on there, COVID lockdowns in China and Russian invasion of China. So here's the dilemma right now. Prices have been up. The S&P has been rallying. We're 11% off the lows in the middle of October, but the earnings are going down here. So that's the market dilemma right now. S&P 500 prices are rising, but S&P earnings trends are moving to the downside. And that's a real problem overall for the market, because right now you've got to make some real arguments here. So here's what's been going on. The S&P 500 multiple is about historic average right now. So when you have rising prices and earnings going down, you have to argue that the multiple is going to expand, and it really can't right now, because at 17, that's the average. If it goes to 19 or 20, now you have to be predicated on the idea the market and the economy is expanding, but it's not. It's in a difficult time right now. So how are you going to make that argument? This is the problem right now. Here's the flat earnings that we've been seeing here. The fourth quarter is now negative. 2023 used to be up 8 or 9%. And now it's going down to 4. Most analysts, Carl, think that earnings for 2023 are going to be flat. So how are you going to push the market forward when earnings are actually going to be down to flat? And overall now, the economy now has got to have a soft landing. That's a big argument for the stock market to make. And I think we're going to have a discussion a lot about that in the next couple of months. Carl, back to you.
I'll about this, a quick reminder, you can always get in on the CNBC Investing Club and Jim. Just sign up and find out more at cnbc.com/join the club, or you can use the QR code on the screen. It takes you right there. Plenty of good stuff, especially given what's coming at us in the next few weeks. Before we go to break, check on bonds today, as we're going to get a lot of Fed speak this week, beginning with Williams tonight. He is a little bit higher after Waller in Australia overnight said these rates are going to stay high. This isn't ending in a meeting or two. We'll be right back.
The Bond Report is brought to you by PIMCO, a global leader in active fixed income.
This is the planning effect. This is how it feels to have a dedicated Fidelity advisor looking at your full financial picture. This is what it's like to have a comprehensive wealth plan with tax-smart investing strategies designed to help you keep more of what you earn, and set aside more for things like healthcare and whatever comes down the road. This is the planning effect from Fidelity.
Welcome. You've got sales.
Thank you.
You've got sales. You've got sales. You've got sales. You've got sales. When you have the internet most loved commerce platform, you've got sales. You've got sales. You've got sales. What's that? That's all.
Go to Shopify.com and start your free trial today.
Goodbye.
Hey, step into your power. Let's go.
I can't come to work out. You're taking out work. Let's get it.
Small business. That small business loan. Approved, gets your funds as soon as the same day. Your loan is on deck. The first time you connected your website and your store was also the first time you realized. Manage all your sales from one place with a vendor that always puts you first. GoDaddy, tools and support for every small business first. Airline, restaurants, we get nearly 15% on it. So keep going, what? So this schemes. This morning, the weakness in today, Microsoft's in region on the downside, Apple's in there too. Despite a catalyst, some of the sell side ratios we haven't gotten to yet. Overall, 39.75 is holding and stock trading the jibs up next.
This goes out to every woman who believes in financial equality. Your money is your call. If we're 50% of the world, we need to be 50% of investors. The next financial revolution is here. Be part of the change. Join women from around the world who are transforming the face of investing. Uniting on eToro to invest in stocks and crypto, sharing gears, tips, and beyond. Be part of the conversation. eToro.
This is efficiency and access. It's done by SEO. Here's added experience and here's added technology. Without everything everything, that helps us all the life of the
The right manager plan may help you. So do yourself a favor. Vision and current coverage flex any expenses. Part B premium reduction on some plans in certain areas. It's a free service, so don't wait. Call Medicare Enrollment for a free coverage initiative. The listener is incredible. After the millions from prisons, still he gets paid. All new American Greed, tomorrow, Chinese, CNBC.
Right, with respect to here. It's the Medicare annual enrollment period, and this year it's simple. 1, before the deadline, call the number below. 2, simply zip below. For a Medicare Advantage plan, school fees, Medicare, and the benefit that adds money back to your Social Security check every month. 3, you'll find out what you're eligible for. AEP has a deadline. Call now.
I called to find a plan that covers more of my dental expenses.
I call every year to make sure my doctor is still in my plan.
I called to find a plan with more copay. I called to see if my zip code has a plan with the benefit that adds money back to my Social Security check.
I call every year to make sure my plan's co-pays didn't go up. Millions of people have called the Medicare Coverage Helpline. You should too. AEP is a deadline, so don't delay. Call now. Call 1-800-813-1247. That's 1-800-813-1247 now.
Let's get a Jim stop saying let's go downgrade the bank part by city. It's basically saying, look, you're gonna have to reprice your account next year and won't make as much money. It's gonna power these banks are very good. I think it's the state control. I think there are many issues that will bank will be able to do, but I really like the stock. Oh, by the way, just checking in. Polygon, people are asking me that's down 2.2, that's $8 billion market cap. Polygon gave 1 year paper $2.46 billion market cap. And then Shiba, which I know that you follow closely, down 2.66, $5 million market cap. And then the recent salon is down 4.9%. That's a $5 million market cap. So just in case people got joking, those are bigger than any of the stocks.
I bet you add them all up, it's one Johnson and Johnson or maybe two.
So I can tell you, this is real important. It's not a chance to go against my battle. And it would be, this is good, but this is not powerful. It's real. And the prices are they the first guys to talk about it?
Apparently they are. The thing Sam Bankman-Fried was the guy who would come to
James Fried,
David. James,
no, James Fried, MIT does that.
you're there.
MIT. You can't MIT. That's cool.
It's with this. They told me just like straight. We'll be great and we'll be that way for that. My slowest will be great. This is going to be a bit of a look at that. I guess Michael is already on screen. Fallout obviously is the Dow's staying positive. Don't go anywhere.
When it comes to money.
The next opportunity is just part of us. It's to create a competitive advantage.
Simple. Opportunity. Home ownership. Writing new rules and redefining the goal.
And driving the world forward to a greener future. Opportunity, say it.
Turning costs today.
Sometimes the only thing standing between you and opportunity is someone who made a connection.
At ICE, we connect people into opportunity. We plan to go for retirement, but I wish we had more cash.
You think those two have any idea that they can sell their life insurance policy for cash? So they're basically sitting on a gold mine? I don't think they have a clue. It's crazy. Well, not everyone knows Coventry sell thousands of people sell their policies for cash, even term policies. I can't believe you're just sitting on all this cash.
If you have a life insurance policy of $100,000 or more, you can sell all or part of it to Coventry, even the term policy, for cash or a combination of cash and coverage with no future premiums.
Someone needs to tell them. They're sitting on a gold mine. You have no idea.
Find out if you're selling on a gold mine. Call Coventry Direct today at 800-571-7900 or visit coventrydirect.com.
We bought the most powerful botanical disinfectant cleaner in the world. No harsh chemicals and safer after people and pets. Clean Boss. Replace bleach, cut grease.
It really works. Clean Boss has changed my life.
Go to shopcleanboss.com now.
Incredible LPGA season has all led to this. As the best women in golf battle to become champion, the CLE Group Tour Championship on Golf Channel and Peacock.
The New York Stock Exchange. We are coming off the best week for the S&P since June, and I'm trying to add a few more gains in the open here on Monday. I'm looking forward to a better read on the consumer. Some good info data.
We're 30 minutes into the trading session. We're going to start with EMD, getting upgraded at both Baird and UPS. Those firms citing positive industry cyclical trends as well as strong demand. Consumer shares up about 1% right now. On the flip side, though, Hasbro getting a double downgrade that to underperform. That move comes after B&A conducted what it calls a deep dive on the company's matching and card game business, saying Hasbro has been overprinting cards, destroying the long-term value of the business. Those shares are down 6.5%. And finally, take a look at shares of Oatly, tumbling, reporting a largely constructive quarterly loss, saying its results were impacted by a number of factors, including China COVID restrictions, production challenges, and a stronger dollar. Shares are down 19% right now, down more than 75% year to date. But we will begin with President Biden and Chinese President Xi meeting earlier today at the G20 summit. Let's get to Eunice Hughes with live at Beijing report. Hi, Eunice.
Good morning. Well, in that three-hour conversation, President Xi and President Biden seem to be able to make some progress in that they both agreed to continue to engage in the Chinese readout as well as in the U.S. readout. We saw that both countries were more or less reiterating their positions. The Chinese Foreign Ministry put out a statement saying that President Xi had essentially laid out to President Biden what China's position is and continues to be. He started with the Taiwan issue, saying that Taiwan is the first red line that must not be crossed. What was interesting is that the Chinese side acknowledged that President Biden said the U.S. does not support Taiwan independence or to China's. And President Biden has said this in the past, but it's positive that at least the Chinese did acknowledge it. On competition, again, we heard that President Biden had brought up the importance of competition in this relationship, but also that it's a conflict. The Chinese side said that President Xi had also agreed that that should be the case. However, he did point out that this, to the Chinese, would mean no trade or tech wars, barriers, decoupling, or severing supply chains, saying that all of that is very detrimental. So I think picking that some of the export controls and some of the other restoring efforts by the U.S. of supply chains because it is bad for the Chinese economy. When it comes to the human rights issues, the White House really seemed to make a point of saying that President Biden had stressed that human rights was brought up in this discussion, why was it raising the effort from the Chinese side that there wasn't as much a discussion about that, but they did say that President Xi more or less said that the Chinese have their own Chinese vision when it comes to democracy as well as human rights. So not as much of an acknowledgement there. Ukraine, this is really, I think, a big difference because President Biden has the importance of Ukraine and ending the war there, but President Xi in the Chinese leader. Again, no use of the word war, no blaming of Russia, and in fact, more or less washed his hands of the Chinese getting involved at all, saying that they look to Ukraine and Russia having conversations, and also the U.S., NATO, and the EU getting involved in this discussion with Russia, right?
You're going to stay with us. We want to bring in our journalist out to get some more color on this, the whole meeting itself. I wonder, he talked about putting a floor in the relations. Obviously, the framing of the competitive economic competition, the human rights element, or maybe just getting them on the record regarding the use of nuclear weapons around Ukraine.
Yeah, there was a lot to be discussed, especially because relations had deteriorated in recent months, making this nearly 3-hour meeting, Carl, the most consequential of Biden's presidency thus far. Talks had stalled between the two countries since House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan in August, and today's face-to-face sought to change that, to take down the temperature and lower the possibility of a misunderstanding or military conflict if each of the two countries understood the other's red lines. In the press conference after the meeting, President Biden was asked whether he saw a new Cold War forming or an invasion of Taiwan imminent. Here's how President Biden answered.
I think the United States is better prepared than any country in the world, economically and politically, to deal with the changing circumstances around them. And I think that Xi Jinping we agreed that we would set up a set of circumstances where issues that we had to further resolve details.
So that's a different soundbite than the one that I was hoping we would run, which said that the president said, I absolutely believe there will not be a new Cold War. I do not think there's any imminent attempt on the part of China to invade Taiwan. And I did not. On another note, in discussing Russia and North Korea, the White House announced that the two leaders agreed nuclear war should not be fought and cannot be won. The meeting paved the way for new talks on various issues and a visit to China by the Secretary of State. But there's no sign that hawkishness toward Beijing by Washington on economic issues is decreasing, as Bruce was just mentioning, and especially for the midterm elections, which is going to make it worth noting that it wasn't actually security strategy, still targeting China as a strategic competitor, facing threat, but also talking about specifically in that security strategy, this need to not only counter China militarily, but work with China when it comes to things like climate as well. So I guess how does that speak to the emerging relationship here as, I don't want to say frenemies, that seems like too light a term, but that's essentially what we're talking about. Well, on the economic front, Morgan, I think it's important to note we are well beyond the economic relationship where we are discussing whether certain people. The of the Commerce Department last month of a broad set of safety export controls essentially is closing the door on eligibility to acquire certain critical technologies going forward. It is very hard to put that genie back in the bottle, and now it's just expectation that there could be majority even decisions in the House Republican majority like try to move some of the points for I think that it's still going in the direction of to return to the healthy world, they need constant insurance. First market, and then of course, 2020 wow, that's coincidental. Just because the whole government is truly a black box, it has to exactly when these policies are announced. But the other thing is that it indicates that the property sector, the federal government, rolled out a 15-point plan. It more or less is aimed at trying to stem any type of liquidity crisis and problematic mass defaults at the developers. The other part of this equation for the program is to try to get a little bit easier for home buyers so that people have the incentive to buy because it's a little bit easier for people to make down payments. But on the whole, the message is still in that property program is that homes are for living and not for speculation. But Morgan, I just wanted to bring up one other point. It was interesting when we were discussing with Philip. There was some encouraging stuff in the Chinese readouts about the discussions going forward. The Chinese side said that the U.S. respects the Chinese system. They acknowledge President Biden's history of China. Actually ran through a bunch of the communications areas, which was really further, it seemed like, from the U.S.'s economic policy and trade as well as the climate change. So one thing, though, that wasn't there was an acknowledgement of China's contribution and the business practices that led to the U.S. Triggering all these policies. And I think that's something that take the subway block before we're doing the great context and reporting from both of you. Thanks for kicking off the hour with us. You're a couch and you're a student.
All right, let's turn to crypto and the continued fallout from the collapse of FTX, the subsequent bankruptcy of the company. Our Kate Rooney joins us now to catch us up on all the latest. Hey.
So we were directly reporting with our CDC investigation on how all of this unraveled at FTX. According to those familiar with company operation, the quant trading firm founded by Sam Bankman-Fried, Alameda, was using customer funds from Bankman-Fried's crypto exchange FTX. Anyway, the floor of the radar of investors, importance and simply underestimated the amount. We need to keep our hands on customers who wanted to cash out. Part of that issue on margins there. So according to the source, allowed clients to borrow crypto from each other, and it was not properly tracking the value of those. Now, Alameda was also trading on margin and using a cryptocurrency created by the FTX exchange called FTT as collateral. We also spoke to some current and former employees who say it was a small inner circle that knew about this alleged mishandling of funds. They declined to comment on that, but he did tell CNBC a margin position for the currency. But a lot of other news guys, some of these did have unrelated money to exchange. They're essentially a backdoor in the Bahamas on August, starting we found unusual trading patterns when it comes to NFTs. Some of the digital collectibles that traded for about $9 a few weeks ago were selling for as much as $10 million this week on FTX. Argus says those patterns suggest desperate customers were looking to move into the Bahamas for help, since that was really the only jurisdiction allowing customers to cash out. Bahamas police were around saying that are now investigating FTX. And whether any criminal misconduct occurred. FTX also separated a suspected hack over the weekend with new CEO and enforcement officer related to the process of moving customer access offline. The result, based on a list of potential damage on $477 million. We also just heard from Binance CEO Chen Pengzhao and the Twitter Spaces just last week. Crypto extenders in this environment, we say we don't know what's going on. They hold a couple of years before. So question is strong activity out there. Nothing that is as it is.
Yeah, it's good advice. You know, it gave us so many unanswered questions with regard to FTX, and it could be months before we really do. But day to day right now, you know, there's a lot of concern. What's beyond that? People talking to me about Tether, about other stable coins, and the attestations, and what are the reserves that really back them up. You know, what are you hearing out there more broadly speaking in terms of this ecosystem and where people are concerned, given everything we've learned and what we don't know yet in terms of the collapse and secondary effects?
That's causing a lot of the data. So some of the unknowns, I'm told there's also hedge funds that works closely with FTX that likely have their money tied up there. That is one of the big jitters when we interviewed Sam Bankman-Fried before. He was talking about we call them power traders essentially. But most of the most popular clients and the majority of clients on FTX were trading $100,000 or more. So that would be some of the wealthier clients, hedge funds, different offices, unpaid activities out there. But those guys tend to have a bigger impact on the broader market than their own market. So there's some transparency out there. There's trust. Exchanges coming out and it's not something that will be a lot of the CEOs. I see it's really development that their ability to so the reason is yeah, so many things
things that we don't get done, but we're gonna keep following it, reporting on it. We have to work here to do it back for the rest of the hour. We did enjoy a growing list of companies that are announcing the systems. I know
Some companies want
Bahamas, a closer look at U.S. creditors trying to see these FTX and said that these assets in the islands. From the law.
I started as a single mom with $2,000 and a passion for New Orleans. I'm Lauren Fidel, owner of Jordan Pearl. Today, my tiny online shop has grown into 8 stores. For a must-have shop for unique New Orleans-inspired gifts. Lauren doesn't just create cool Nola merch, she creates opportunities. Small businesses like Lauren open doors for neighborhoods to thrive. Support your community. Support small business.
High Point University is the premier life skills university where student transformation is focused on personal literacy and extraordinary career outcomes. Employers value HPU's real world preparation. Students love unprecedented access to global leaders on High Point's inspiring campus. And parents appreciate HPU's God, family, and country values. Choose to be extraordinary at High Point University.
A rally like this is supposed to be dramatic. Yeah, you want to talk about it. Really, this is mistakes. This is mistakes. So is this. And this. And even this. Yeah, this too. There are so many ways to enjoy our guaranteed perfection. Just a little everyday wisdom from Omaha Steaks. Visit OmahaSteaks.com/TV today and you'll get these 2 bourbons. Have you tried Omaha Steaks? Save an extra $30 with promo code Enjoy Steaks at checkout.
Welcome back to Squawk on the Street, checking on the markets on this Monday morning, down to about 80 points. S&P trying to hold on close to 4K today. Joining us this morning, Richard Bernstein, advisor Dan Suzuki, and Charles Schwab, Jeff Kleinsock, guys. Great to see you both. Dan, let me begin with you. I know you've been, I don't know if you keeping some dry powder over the course of the summer, but now we got obviously the lines of communication open between the president and Xi. You got Zelensky and Kherson arguing this could be the beginning, the end of the war. Not to mention some of the announcements we got last week. Do you feel more constructive?
I guess it depends, Carl, on which market you're talking. I mean, we've been, pointing out that the fundamentals for areas like China have been improving. Unfortunately, with respect to most markets, the fundamentals are still deteriorating. In our view, the big issue here is that profits are going to exceed us slow. We think we will be in a profit recession within the next couple of quarters, and liquidity is going to continue to tighten. That's probably a pretty bad backdrop for markets. So, notwithstanding that we get a bounce that lasts a month, just like we saw in the summer, I think ultimately, the market still has to be priced at a growth recession, and I think that's still the come.
Jeff, it's not an uncommon view that this is all tactical and related to positioning regarding the trajectory of rates, and that we're going to have a reckoning moment maybe in the spring, some say, regarding earnings. Are you on board with that?
I think the market's priced in a modest recession in earnings. The market's really been excited by this. I think they're getting Thanksgiving for an early stance of pause rally from central bank. The market's coming in at 70 trends or a shift away from zero COVID policy next spring when Biden expect vaccine approval 2 antiviral pill, one in Shanghai for April and reducing quarantine terms. If they do, that could unleash a year of pent-up demand that could boost inflation for commodities and goods and consumer spending coming pouring back here in the world's second largest economy. And that could derail plans by the Fed, ECB, and others to pause rate hikes early next year. That might not be welcome news for investors.
Yeah, I'm just saying that thread, Dan. If we have actually seen peak inflation, so kind of going back to the kind of reopening thing, but if we have actually seen peak inflation, if we have seen peak long-term interest rates, does it even still matter when you have folks like Waller, Fed Governor Waller, coming out just earlier today and saying that essentially the rates are going to stay, they're going to keep going up. He said they're going to go up to stay high for a while until we see this inflation get down closer to our target. The fact that if inflation continues to remain elevated, even if they step down to 50 basis points, they're going to keep hiking it and they're going to stay there longer. Does it matter if we peaked or not in some of these other metrics?
No, Morgan, I think that's exactly spot on. That's exactly the point. I think if you think about the markets this year, predominantly the market action has been about repricing inflation, then repricing the physical reaction to inflation. I think more or less the markets are about right now, if not a little bit more aggressive than what the Fed's already indicated. So from that perspective, as we move going forward, whether or not inflation is peaked or not, I think it has. It is less of a question because the markets are really priced for, that story and repriced for the Fed story. So the bigger surprise that still needs to be priced in is the growth story here. And I think that's ultimately the point. Everybody's ultra focused on Fed, whether he's blowing his nose or not, but really it comes down to profits growth. And that's where, the next quarter after that, as we continue to see those numbers get more and more negative, I think that puts the pressure on markets, particularly the cyclical parts of the market. On the flip side, and that could actually have some positive implications for certain areas of fixed income.
So Chuck, the dollar, the fact that it has come off, it has been against other currencies in recent weeks. At least last week, it did seem to be somewhat of an indicator for stock market activity as well. Do you expect that dynamic to continue? Does the dollar continue to weaken from here? Is it inflation in 2023?
Very hard to see the direction of the dollar. It's one of the hardest things to forecast. We think the dollar could be maybe near a peak, but maybe it hasn't peaked yet. I think the important thing for investors is to focus on what's been working in their markets, and that is higher quality stocks, high dividend payers, and shorter duration stocks, meaning those with low price to cash flow ratios. These have been outperforming. They're also more prevalent outside the US, and the three reasons why international stocks are neck and neck with the S&P 500 this year. They would be equally advanced. Despite this incremental the dollar issue aside and focus on the fact that we are seeing this continued outperformance even in October and November in high dividend payers, short duration stocks, more frequent than international benchmarks. That's allowing the FTSE, the Nikkei, and even the Euro stocks to be pretty well this year, despite the rise in the dollar. So I think this is an
Crypto. Is it too small and too siloed to cause contagion, as the city argued on Friday?
Yeah, Carl, I largely agree with that. I think on a national scale, a global scale, when you look at the financial markets, you look at our economy, it is probably too small to matter. That being said, clearly there's going to be global markets, big individual and big companies that get caught up time. So, it's certainly, there's plenty of room to make more headlines here, but ultimately, when we step back to the fray, it's a pretty, very small percentage of overall people's wealth, people's portfolios, financial markets, and transactions overall. So I'm not too worried on the macro scale.
Hopefully we'll talk in the coming days, guys, once we get some of these retail earnings, a better read on the consumer. But thanks for helping us set the table this week, Dan and Jeff. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys. See you.
As we head to a break, take a look at shares of Biogen. They are higher this morning. This following disappointing Alzheimer's drug results from Arrival Roche. You may recall Biogen in September revealed that its latest experimental treatment for Alzheimer's had slowed the progress of the disease. Stock is trading at the highest level since September of 2021. Should point out that there is an overall positive tone to many of the other pharmaceutical names after a difficult day, certainly, on Friday. We're back to it.
need new replacement windows. If you're just not sure during the budget this year, right? I'm Brian Gary here with Ted Quillen from Renewable Energy. He's here to talk about how to make window replacement more affordable. Well, first, Brian, you don't have to do long. You can just replace your worst windows first. Or another way to make them affordable is to change the style of the window. For example, you can do a sliding window instead of a casement. We have a lot of ways to make window projects really affordable. Compared to other window companies, you have a completely different business model. Yeah, with other companies, there's just too many people involved in the process. There's the manufacturer, the seller, and then the installer, and then the customer. And if you call it a problem, that's when they say, oh, we're the manufacturer. You have to call the installer for that problem. Or vice versa. We're a full service replacement window division of Anderson. With us, there's no passing the buck. At Renewal by Anderson, we sell, build, install, and warrant our windows and patio doors. So if there's ever an issue, we take full responsibility for it. Why don't we sell by the window? Well, a lot of vinyl products just don't hold up well in the elements. You know, like our vinyl fence. When it's first installed, it looks great, but with expansion and contraction, it's old. For that same reason, a lot of vinyl windows just won't last. Our window material is a composite that combines the best of vinyl and wood. The fabrics are very rigid like vinyl, but stronger than vinyl. And it's beautiful like wood, but doesn't require other people's wood. Now, guarantee Black Friday building. Buy one window or door, get the next one 40% off. That's 40% off. And if a purchase of 4 plus, save an extra $30 on every window and door with no money down, no monthly payments, and no interest for a year. Our countdown to Black Friday sales event is February 25th. For the monthly call, 1-800-918-0823. You can start your business on your own. Streamline your shipping, returns, and product storage so you can focus on growing your business. Because when we work together, this future works. Start your journey.
Equity of opportunity. Bringing diverse perspectives to the forefront and sharing with spotlight organizations and providing diversity, equity, and inclusion. Learn more at equityandopportunities.com. Voices and visibility.
Let's give you a quick check on the communication services sector. The ticker there is XLC. It is down more than 35% for the year. Of course, it has been led lower by a lot of big technology names such as Meta and Alphabet. Another name of the group we're keeping an eye on this morning is this, according to a memo from its CEO Bob Chapek. The company is planning on layoffs, potentially, and certainly a hiring freeze, limiting headcount additions for a targeted hiring freeze. Hiring for the small subset of the most critical business driving positions will continue, he says in the memo. Goes on to say as well, a review of SG&A costs has determined there is room for improved efficiency. I'm fully aware this will be a difficult process for many of you, he goes on to say, but that's just what leadership requires. I thank you in advance for stepping up during this important time. Much of this obviously focused on reaching that important goal that Chapek has outlined previously for profitability for Disney Plus, the direct-to-consumer platform of the company in fiscal 2024, and as well, of course, making the company, he says, more efficient and nimble overall. You can see Disney shares are responding positively to this overall provocative, perhaps, to this greater as well.
Well, page from box office this weekend too. Black forever. Black for the Great, we have a lot more Sam Bankman Fried and Frank from San Diego.
Majesty, banking laws. They're one reason that there are over 270 licensed banks and trust companies just in the Bahamas. Very difficult there to get foreign editors to find client access to account information. Companies don't have to disclose their shareholders, directors, or even their officers. Now, trust law in the Bahamas can actually shield assets from U.S. creditors when you have special asset protection trusts which make it difficult for U.S. bankruptcy courts and even the Justice Department to find and recover assets. The Bahamian securities regulators have put several FTX companies into receivership. Those are separate from the U.S. bankruptcy proceedings and could make for a much longer and more complicated process. Now, the U.S. does have an extradition treaty with the company, but it could take years for even DOJ to wind through the Bahamian court. Guys? Robert, thank you. So many answer your questions there. Investments, of course, in FTX are essentially left in limbo after that crypto exchange did file for bankruptcy protection in the U.S. on Friday. Joining us now to discuss the legal ramifications is Jessica Dodge, who's a professor and associate dean at Vanderbilt University Law School, teaches courses such as corporate bankruptcy, financial markets, the age of technology, and securities regulations. Yes. Now, how complicated is this from your perspective, both from a regulatory framework and or legal framework, and for those who are going to ultimately want to see some sort of recovery?
Well, David, thank you very much for having me on the show. There are reasons to think that this bankruptcy is going to be truly pretty exceptionally complicated for three big reasons. Firstly, we're dealing with 834 entities that are spanning across the globe. And in fact, we mentioned Bahamas earlier, but the coverage of FTX actually is completely global. And that presents a lot of problems for the U.S., in particular having to coordinate across multiple jurisdictions when it comes to figuring out where the assets are and being able to get recovery for creditors. But it also imposes other problems because one has to coordinate the different courts, and many of them have different rules, particularly with respect to things like maintaining assets within their own jurisdictions for creditors within their own countries. So that creates a problem in and of itself. But there's some deeper problems still too, which comes from locating the assets themselves. Now, as we saw over the weekend, there was a big hack at FTX. It looked like a hack of about $470 million. These are problems that are going to come up, trying to locate the assets, figuring out how to control them and secure them.
And then if your supplement plan can cover your deductible and co-insurance, but you may pay higher premiums and still not get prescription drug coverage. But with an all-in-one Humana Medicare Advantage plan, you can get all that coverage plus Part D prescription drug coverage with no copays or deductibles on zero-line prescriptions. You get all this coverage for as low as a $0 monthly plan